Okay, welcome everyone. I'm so happy to have all of you here with me today. My name is Melissa Folks, and I go by she, her pronouns. I'm coming from you today from the traditional territory of the Chochenyo and Karkin Ohlone people in the East Bay, and I'm a naturalist at Big Break Visitor Center in Oakley. And I'm so excited today to be able to have a conversation with y'all. We're going to be doing Voices from the Parks, a conversation with Black employees of the East Bay Regional Park District. And thank you so much for being here. And I want to go ahead and let y'all introduce yourselves. And don't feel pressured to go first. Whoever is ready to go can go ahead and get started by saying your name and what you do at the parks.
My name is Yolanda Barriel Knight, and I am the clerk of the board.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Tony Clark, been in East Bay Regional Parks for about 22 years now, and I'm a sanitation truck driver.
Welcome, Tony.
My name is Kari Haley. I work in the fire department, and I'm a fire captain for operations.
Welcome, Kari.
So my name is Kenneth Miller. I am a park supervisor 2 at Lake Temescal, and I've been with the district for about 16 years.
Welcome, Ken.
Hi, my name is Virginia Delgado Martinez, and I'm a naturalist, and I've been working as a naturalist at Black Diamond Mines for about 6 years now.
Welcome, Virginia. So this all stemmed from a conversation that Virginia and I had about providing some resources and information specifically to school-aged youth and young adults who are interested in pursuing careers in the parks. We know this process isn't a linear process, and there's so many different diverse fields that folks can get into in the parks. And so we wanted this to be a kind of a starting point for bringing some awareness, bringing out some information to help youth find some agency into coming into the park district. So we'll go ahead and start with some icebreakers if y'all are comfortable with that. And you might hear some squeaking in the background. I'm at home right now and my puppy is kind of going crazy. So I apologize for any noises that are happening. So our first question is, what is your favorite park and why? Y'all can let that marinate for a little bit if you want.
So I'll jump right in and say my favorite park is going to be Sibley. And the reason why is because it's a volcanic preserve and I'm into geology and gemology.
Thank you.
Yeah, my favorite park would be Sunol, and mainly because of the variety of topography in Sunol. To me, it's like our own local mini Yosemite as far as the size of it, and there's just lots of different aspects to it if you explore it.
My favorite park is actually a beach. I like Miller Knox Beach because I've always liked being near the water. So I love it.
Yeah, I love the water too, but I'm gonna have to say Black Diamond because not because I'm biased because I work there, but it really is a gorgeous park because it feels like you're really in the backcountry, even though you're like, 20 minutes from downtown Antioch. It feels like you can really get away. You can go underground in the mines. It's like no other place.
Mine would be Tilden, Lake Anza, all that area up in there. And for me, the reason why is that was my stomping grounds back when I was a kid. My father started taking us there. At that time, I didn't know anything about East Bay Regional Parks or anything like that, but I was small, but I still remember going up there all the time. And then as I became a teenager, stayed up in there. Anybody wanted to find me, they knew I was up in Tilden. I like hiking. Like I said, I'm an outdoors person, love it. And all the trees and stuff, my spot. And it's still today is one of my favorite spots.
Awesome. Tony, what a great segue into our next question, which is, what is your earliest memory experience, while outdoors?
As far as the parks, I would say I can remember as far back as probably about 8 years old. And like I said, the memory for me, it was great because it was my father and my mother, my sister, and you know, and at that particular time, you know, my mother was still around. So that's a great memory. It's like, that's my holding spot that I can always remember on that. So that's as far back as I can go with that one.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, for me, it would be Redwood Park. But I grew up off of between 35th and Redwood Road in Oakland. And when I was, 12, 13, we would ride our bikes up there, and then we would play war games where we dress in camouflage and play these tag games with groups of friends and run through what we thought was the forest. And we were just playing tag games. And that was just something we did. Looking back on it now, the Rangers, we probably look pretty suspect, dressed in camouflage and hiding in bushes, but we're full of imagination and we're having a good time.
Corey, I think that's totally okay. I used to teach out along the coast at an outdoor science camp, and we played a game and it was called camouflage, and the youth did exactly that. So.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't a park, but my family spent a lot of time outside in my grandmother's backyard. And I remember from being a young kid that it was in Mississippi. So my grandmother is still there, huge house, huge property. And we spent a lot of time as a family just hanging out there, my uncles, playing dominoes, and we were talking and dancing and, being in the South, they ate crawfish and drank beer. I didn't like crawfish, but they loved it. And so it was a lot of that, just hanging out, family time, picking. My grandmother had figs, so we used to eat her figs. She didn't like that, off her tree. And we just had a lot of time. So I liked being outside. I liked the warmth. So being outside to me is a family thing. That's what I get.
It definitely sounds like it. So far, it sounds like so many connections around family and friendships, and sounds like a lot of positive feelings are stemming from your experiences being in the outdoors. Is anyone else interested in sharing before we move to the next one?
Sure. For me, when I think about this question, like I grew up most of my childhood in San Diego. So my experiences of nature always evolved around water. I was always at the beach. One of my favorite things to do with my brother and my dad was swim the furthest we can on our boards and just lay out and enjoy the waves. And one instance that popped out at me was like one time we were like way out there. I feel like I can touch the boats. And we saw this shadow under us. And of course we thought like, oh my gosh, this is it. We're about to be eaten by dogs, y'all. Like we're done. And the closer the shadow got to the surface, the bigger it got. And next thing you know, it was just a turtle. Oh. So that was like the most memorable experience, but also the scariest outdoors.
It's great that you can laugh about it now, though, but that's awesome. Yeah. I don't think of it. I've never seen a turtle in the water. It's like a life, like a goal list, right?
Yeah.
Check it off. All right. Since we were talking about friendships and family members, this is a good time to ask, who are some of your role models or mentors before we start diving into conversations about job-related themes? So who are some role models or mentors that you have that you are willing to share with us?
I was just going to say that I kind of tried to relate it to the Park District, because personally, I don't really have any mentors, which is something that I would like to have. But in terms of role models at the Park District, I actually wrote Karen McClendon, and I wrote her name and I said and I'm going to read what I wrote because I really liked it. And I said, Karen McClendon, for her commitment to her professionalism, her kindness, and dedication on doing the right thing because it is the right thing, and not getting caught up in any drama, but she is realistic and has wisdom that she shares lovingly. And being around her, you always kind of, for me, I always feel at peace whenever I see her. So for being in the Park District, she would be a role model of mine.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, for me, I get this question a lot, different leadership training and classes, but for me, what's important is I'm always keeping my eyes open. I'm always trying to listen and watch good behavior, even watch bad behavior, and learning about life and how to do things correctly, and then sometimes how people do things incorrectly and learning from that. And I think when I look at mentorship, instead of keeping it narrow on individuals, I'm constantly watching people and learning from it and adapting and seeing things that I like and going, I really like how that person does that, and then figuring out how to make that part of who I am as a person. And at the same time, even if you don't have necessarily always positive role models or mentors, you can see how when people make mistakes based off decisions, learn from that as far as how to avoid it. The traditional mentor, for me, even though I've learned from many people, currently directly the first time in my career, I actually have a boss, which happens to be the fire chief, but she, truly has my self-interest in mind as far as trying to make sure that my career continues to move forward, and has confidence in me that good things can happen from her helping to elevate me. So that would be my, if I had to put a name to that, that would be Chief Eileen Tiley.
Role model for me, my father has been always my role model and my mentor. That's the way I ever since my mother passed away, it was like he tried to make sure that I walked the right path and learned certain stuff. He had the old school ways. And what I mean by that is he would be that person to tell you, bring your butt out here. You're about to learn how to work on this car. You're not going to sit up here all day, to make the man out of you. That's the way it was with him. And he taught me, I was always a sponge. If you want to teach it to me, I'm willing to learn. And that's the way he told me, hey, if you want to learn something, get out there. If there's something you need to know, ask a question. Don't ever be afraid to ask. He said, because what's the worst they could tell you? No. If you're asking a question about something, if you want it, he said, and as far as learning something, there's never too much to learn. It's always, if it's out there, learn it. As far as treating somebody or people a certain way, always treat somebody the way you would want to be treated. And I live off of that because I try to give an aura of happiness. I'll never forget, I was working at one of the other parks, Delgado to be exact, and people would come through, you're always smiling. Why are you smiling like that? I was like, that's just the way I am. That's who I am. I was raised that way. My father taught me that, just, hey, you might not get it back all the time, but if you put it out there like that, majority of the time, you'll get it back. So props to my pops. That's all I can say, because he's my man. And he's still here today, and I still listen to everything he tells me.
I love it.
Absolutely. I'd like to say, I have a similar story, but instead of my father, it was my grandfather. And he taught me all of those things as well, Tony, how to be a man, how to stand up straight, look people in the eye, have respect. Everything from how to tie my shoes to how to check the fluid in my mom's radiator. My father wasn't there, but my grandfather was always there. And he's unfortunately not here now, but he was definitely my biggest role model.
Yes.
Thank you.
For me, I'm just gonna say quickly, it's Rhee Toskins, the oldest park ranger in National Park Service. She's just amazing, and she's a phenomenal woman, Black woman who works at the Rosie the Riveter Historic National Park, and she's a role model because she is just amazing. She does whatever she does is just great, and she just recently wrote a book. I'm just gonna say that.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences. Let's go ahead and start going into what our different jobs are and explain a little bit about what our roles are. So if y'all would be willing to share what your job is at the park. I know we shared our titles earlier, but if we could expand a little bit upon that and what our job entails, what a day-to-day might entail for you.
I guess I can go. So I'm in charge of fire operations, and if you didn't know the details of that, it's equivalent to being like running a business. You're dealing with the day-to-day business of the fire department. So everything from the purchasing of any supplies, any equipment, apparatus, so the things that we drive the fire engines, to anything that's needed for the department, making decisions on basis on financially what we can afford, maybe what direction we need to go into, keeping the department supplied and operating well, and also dealing with the staff as far as who's working where, how do we staff certain stations, how do we protect the district during high fire danger days when we have the most exposure. And so it's a lot of moving pieces, and most of it has to do with your ability to make decisions and make good decisions. And to be able to make good decisions, you have to have knowledge about what you're deciding to do. And it's basic management skill set, but to be a good manager, obviously you have to be knowledgeable about the details of the things that you're trying to operate. So for me, it's fun because it's like running a business, and then the goal is, how can I make it as effective? How can I make it as good as it can be, efficient, protect the district as well as we can. And so for all those reasons, it's challenging and it's fun, and I like it.
Thank you, Corey.
Well, as I said earlier, I work with the Sanitation Department. One of my daily routine starts out early in the morning. There's anywhere from 6 or 5 o'clock in the morning, depending on the days. The holidays will usually start about 5, so we can get into the parks. We all have different routes, and our routes are servicing the East Bay Regional Parks, and that's the chemical toilets, anywhere from chemical toilets to septic tanks. And we basically go through and get the human waste out of the chemical toilets, septic tanks. You got CXTs that are in each park, which are the bathrooms. And I can be at any given park, depending on what the call is. If there's an emergency that comes up, we've got backups. We come out, we get called out on if there's a lift station that shuts down. Like we've had it where power shut off. That means the lift stations don't work. That means stuff doesn't get pumped out. That means we're called out. We got to be there on the site and make sure everything's taken care of. Pump them into the truck, to the trucks, and then we go dump the waste someplace else.
All right. Sounds like you can be everywhere since there are 73 East Bay Regional Parks. So
yes, and I was
flying all across the bay.
Yes, we are at any of the parks if we're called out, and that's one of the things I really love. Now I can get called at any park. I've seen more of the parks now than I did before, because if you're specifically at one park, you're there most of the time. But this, I'm driving all over the Bay Area now, to get to this park, to that park, this park, whichever one's called. If it's an emergency, I might be on my off day, get a text, oh, gotta go. I'm out there.
Yes, much exposure. That's fantastic. You can really get to know the Bay Area in that way, right?
Yes, and you gotta watch out for all the accidents and traffic too, because you get stuck in them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go next. My name is Shalonda, and I'm the clerk of the board. And the clerk of the board, let me back up. I've been the clerk of the board since 2015, and I didn't share that I've been with the district since 1992. That was when I first started at the district, so that's 29 years. But as the clerk of the board, I am the keeper of the district's records. And those records are all related to any actions that are taken by the board. And that's actually everything, everything the district does. In terms of the day-to-day, every day is something new. I work for 7 elected politicians, I'll call them that. And it's always just making sure that they have their needs met. And of course, in terms of what Sharon and I do, who is my assistant, we conduct board meetings every 2 weeks. And that requires a lot of communication between all of the board and the staff to ensure that we have all of our documents in order so that we can produce the board packet every 2 weeks. We have public meetings. I'm responsible for ensuring that the board is in compliance with their Form 700s, which are the statements of economic interest. I make sure that, and then there's a couple of other forms, 460s and 470s, that they have to do as elected officials. Those things need to be completed in a timely fashion. There's a couple of trainings that they need to do to AB 1234, which is their ethics training. Make sure that they do that. There's a lot of paperwork. Well, it used to be a lot of paperwork, but it's a lot of record keeping. And we also ensure that, like the board operating guidelines are kept up to date. And we just do a lot of proper care and feeding, actually, of not only the board, but the staff. And I really like my job, and it seems like since 2015, I think right now I'm finally hitting a groove, and I'm learning more and more every day. And I'm blessed that I have an opportunity to work with people that actually believe that I can do the job, which kind of helps me to believe that I can do the job. And so for that, I'm appreciative. We've got a lot of things on our plate since we've gone from having board meetings in the building and to virtual. So there's been a huge learning curve, not only in the clerk of the board's office, but I think I know throughout the district, going from that to virtual. So there's been quite a few hiccups, but we've managed to push through. And I guess it seems like, to me, sometimes when I talk about my job, it's like this glorified secretary, right? You've got a lot of different people that you need to manage, and then you're managed. So it's I enjoy it. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
So I guess I'll go next. I always like hearing what everyone has to do. It's so interesting. I'm still learning things about who does what. But in my position as a naturalist, my job is really to connect people to the parks, to their natural resources, their cultural resources that we have. So I'm usually one of the first faces you see when giving programs. My job is to plan programs, deliver programs. Pre-COVID, that meant during the week, I welcome hundreds of school kids, and we take them hiking, and we take them underground, get their hard hat on, teach them geology. And then on the that was the weekdays. And then on the weekends, sometimes I'll do public programming and work with our volunteers sometimes, where we'll talk about other things, like whether it's at Martinez shoreline, or taking night hikes, or do bat monitoring programs, doing citizen science with the public, just a whole bunch of things. Showing them some of our wildlife. As you can see, I have some of my snakes behind me. Lately, we've been pivoting during this COVID world now. So we've taken all of our programs, we've taken them virtual. So that means sometimes I'm bringing out the snakes and showing the kids during their Zoom classes. Sometimes it involves creating content for our social media, getting folks involved in other ways. So It was like you said, Yolanda, it was a learning curve. Like I didn't know anything about Zoom, lights, green screens, and guess what? Now I do. And I never thought in my career working outdoors I would have to learn tech. So it's good, folks out there who know tech and want to be in the parks. This is a good time.
Thank you.
So Kenneth Miller, park supervisor at Lake Temescal. My day-to-day routine is ever changing. For the most part, obviously supporting management's directive and keeping the park open, operating and safe, for the public. So that could entail lots of many different things, from running contracts for tree hazards, monitoring the lake water quality and working with water management, lifeguard services, in addition to, supervising a staff of 5 and during season focus 8 in total. And at the same time, working with the lifeguard service to keep the beach open, for example. So there's a lot of, it's ever changing, and there's a lot that needs to be done in order to keep a park open and running and safe for the public.
So it sounds like almost in everyone's roles, there's definitely that sense of being flexible, being adaptable, as well as being a team player, being really organized, right? Clear communication. Those are all things that seem to be transcending in all of your different roles. I did get a really great question from one of our participants, one of our, I guess I would say attendees or viewers. We have a little over 50 viewers right now. And their question is I love hearing all the stories of your early outdoor experiences. I think these kinds of experiences are so important for developing an appreciation for nature and comfort with healthy outdoor activities. However, I worry that kids today are becoming more and more detached from nature, especially in more urban areas. What do you think are the best ways to start kids down the path to a greater appreciation of nature and the outdoors? If you want me to repeat it, I can.
I'll go ahead and tackle that. I have 3 young children, 3 boys, an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old.
You're busy.
Yeah, and me, I deliberately have not introduced my kids to video game playing. So my kids, they might know about like some basic little game that is through their school, we're learning something, but they don't know like the, I don't even know I was gonna say Nintendo, and I don't even think that's a game anymore. PlayStation, thank you. I think Nintendo's my Commodore 64. But anyway, the games that kids play today, we don't even have in our house. And we, on the weekends, we're bike riding, we're hiking, we're getting them outdoors, and then we're teaching them about enjoying just being in nature and just getting out and seeing things. And I think when that's instilled in you at a young age, you learn to appreciate that. I think people who are indoors on some virtual world playing video games later on, or even anybody who's just not going to nature. Like I said earlier, I grew up, playing in the parks and stuff. Mm-hmm. Parks become scary places where scary animals live, or just danger is. And so therefore it's not something that people want to go to. So the earlier that you can get exposed to hiking and just being in parks, I think it's good for everybody.
Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement with him. I do the same thing. I have a daughter that's 12 years old. She'll be 13 later on this year. I started her out real young. I'm a water boy as well. Got her out on lakes and stuff. We do camping. And I have a lot of other family friends with their kids, and we all do the same thing. We limit my daughter to the electronic world. She does a little bit of the PS, but not like you would see a lot of the other kids that are addicted to it. Same thing with the phones. I think the biggest thing nowadays these kids are doing is the TikTok. That's so I have to limit my daughter. Okay, that's enough. We do family stuff, but she's real good at it to where, hey, are we going camping this year? When are we going on that trip? We go to big trees.
Yes.
Get them involved with that kind of stuff. Like you said, if you get them involved young and take all the electronics away, they don't have a choice but to get into that.
Yeah. I would have to say, like, for me, because there's already a lot of kids that already are in that world already. So like for those people who are like, how do I trying to move my child to be more interested in that stuff, even if they already have their, tech, they're already into technology. My advice is just start where you are. Nature can be your backyard. It doesn't have to be in the backcountry in Yosemite. It could be walking in your park. And for me, I have an 8-year-old at home, so we have picnics. She loves food. Like a lot of kids like food. So starting off with that, or maybe playing a game like Pokemon Go, where that it is a little bit technology, but it does get them one step out the door. And then sooner or later, something magical happens. And next thing you know, they're putting that tech down. They go outside and they're on an app that leads them to a redwood forest. And next thing you know, they're looking up and slowly that stuff melts away. So I think just meeting folks where they are if you can't get them at an early age.
Thank you. It's like working within a scaffold, right? Like kind of getting them a little bit outside that comfort zone. I'm a former teacher, so I'm always about like scaffolding, like a little out of the comfort zone to kind of get them a little uncomfortable, but still like safe enough. And then it just kind of builds, right?
Right.
We got another question, which is very much in line with the next question I was going to ask about how did you get at the parks? So the question is, who or what brought you all to the East Bay Regional Park District?
I guess I'll start that one out. For me, I was doing construction and everything before I got into the park district. My father was a general contractor, so that's where I got all my experience with that. I had a friend that knew I liked the outdoors so much, and she used to work at, back then it was Pac Bell. And she saw a friend making copies of the application for East Bay Regional Park. So she asked her, hey, make me a copy. I know somebody that would probably like this. And she gave it to me. And she said, I didn't know if you'd be interested. Yes, I filled out the application and I waited. I didn't hear anything. I said, well, I probably didn't get it, or maybe somebody else got the job. All I remember is I was in LA visiting my auntie, and my sister called. She says, remember that application that you filled out? They want you. And I got a ticket coming all the way back trying to get this so I can get to the interview and make the phone call and stuff. So that's how I got into it. And I've been into it ever since, and I enjoy every moment of it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, this is Kari. I was hiking one day in the park, and I saw a person on an ATV with a chain hooked up to a log, and they were pulling it, and it happened to be a park ranger. And at the time, I didn't even know that there was park jobs, wasn't even thinking about it. And so I'm like, who are you? And he's like, I'm a ranger. I'm like, for who? And he's like, East Bay Regional Park District. And I'm like, how do you get jobs like that? And this guy's in the woods, he's on an ATV, he's pulling a log. I was like, this looks like cool stuff to me. And he's like, you apply. So then that wasn't really the answer I wanted to hear, so I kind of blew it off. But I actually came from computers and graphic design. I used to work for .com in Silicon Valley prior, back in 2001, 2002. And that 9/11 had happened. There was a downturn in the industry and I had lost my job. So I remembered that guy, and I was looking for a job that was more fulfilling and stable. And I happened to see a job for a position called sign maker, and then it said environmental graphics. Well, I knew computer skills, I knew graphic design, never made a sign in my life. But I figured, I'm pretty adaptable. I can pretty much learn anything. You just give me some time to do it. And so I applied. And during my interview, I didn't realize there was a fire department. And when I was younger, about 19 and 20, I went through Firefighter 1 Academy and EMT because that was my first passion. I got distracted into graphic design. That career took off quicker. Well, later on, I tell them I'm an EMT and Firefighter 1. I get hired as as that sign maker, and then get hired into a on-call or industrial firefighter position, and realize I could do both things at the same agency. So in my mind, I was like, if I can't get this job, this seems like the perfect fit. Everything I've ever studied my entire life, I could do at the exact same agency. And then once I got in, I took more classes to pursue my original passion, which was fire. And then I took a pay cut, became a firefighter, and the rest is history. I guess 18. I've been there 18 years now as far as the district. But yeah, the original was just seeing a park ranger pulling a log on an ATV.
That's quite the story.
I know.
You really came full circle too, like
Wow.
loving the outdoors and then being like, no, I'm gonna go this way because this seems more like the straight and narrow, and then you just fell right back into it.
Yeah, I can say that for me, I like I said, I'm from Mississippi. So when I moved here, I had graduated from college, and I was working at Pepsi, and that was and as just in this as a secretary, and but I have a degree in biology, but I could never get a job working in that field. I tried and I tried, and then I just got frustrated because I needed a job, so I got hired at Pepsi. After working there for about 4 years, the place in Emeryville closed. So then I needed to find another job, and I was doing all kinds of, having a lot of fun. I was really young. And then somebody turned me on to the district, and I don't really recall who. So I applied and I got in the second pool. And so I didn't get that job. And then they called me for another position, which I ended up getting, and that was the member in the public affairs in the membership as the membership coordinator. So that was in 1992. That's when we worked in the Trudeau, where Trudeau is. Our offices were downstairs. I worked in public affairs, so all of us were like crammed into this little spot. And here I have this family, So that's how I started working in the district as the membership coordinator. And at some point, we moved from there to Peralta Oaks. And then at the time, the assistant for the general manager, she took a liking to me. So she asked me if I was interested in this position that was opening up on the 4th floor. So I applied and I got it. It was confidential secretary. So I stayed there, moved around, worked for different people, and ended up working for the clerk of the board. And then after he retired, I applied and I got the position. And in all of those things, none of what I have ever done has been what I studied. However, I have I love to learn, I love to read, and I love to write. So all of those things are what the clerk of the board has for me. There's lots to read. At the time, there was a lot of writing, not so much anymore. And then, of course, my love of people, all of those things kind of go together. And that's how I came to the district. I took classes to learn. I became the notary. So I've taken a lot of classes. I've taken advantage of the training that the district has offered to increase my skills. There was a time when I tried to work in ASD, but I could never get hired. And so I kind of gave up on it, but I love biology. I love science. So, and that's also why I like sitting in these meetings. I hear so many, I learn so much, I could sit there forever and listen, and so that's how I got to the district.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Mm-hmm.
So how I came to the district was through a friend, and that friend worked at a beach and offered me an opportunity to work temporary as a park ranger. And I thought he was, one of the coolest guys. He drove a tractor on the beach, and, he pulled up seaweed and had major projects going on as far as park construction. And I worked temp for a while, and I just fell in love with the job. It totally fit me as a person. I have also aspirations to become a supervising naturalist as well. I think Melissa and Virginia, you have one of the coolest jobs that the district has. And so I'm interested in so many things with the district, and I came to it in that way. Secondly, being introduced through the trails, riding the trails, being an avid mountain biker. And I did that with the best friend who ultimately put me on to the district.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken, for shouting out our jobs. I think your job is awesome too.
Yeah.
I really think so. I mean, we couldn't do our jobs without the ranger staff. Like, it just couldn't happen
Not at all.
without the parks opening. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. My job as a naturalist, well, I actually always wanted to. I was always a major nature nerd, like always. So I kind of always knew like I'm going to work with nature somehow from a really early age, but not always knowing what that was. I was lucky enough to get an internship when I was 17 years old, working in national parks, and that really helped me pave the way. In the Marin Headlands National Park, they had a nonprofit organization, which I started off learning how to take the kids on hikes after school. And they pretty much helped me get into my academic career in college. So I originally studied environmental sustainability and policy, and I was on the road to actually become a lawyer. And I was taking environmental policy classes, and I even interned at a law firm, and I really enjoyed learning about this species, but I felt kind of weird just sitting in the office all day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it wasn't for me at the time. But what I did always on the weekends, I always went back into national parks and worked summers working summer camps. So I always had that in my back pocket, but it wasn't until my senior year I had to start applying for jobs, start applying to law school. And I was wondering, like, am I going to go to law school and continue working in the office for imperiled species, or am I going to do what I really enjoy, which is being in the field teaching, which I've been doing all summer anyways. So I applied for East Bay Regional Park District. Actually, my mom and another employee from the park district who I took classes with, Sonomia, she told me that, hey, like, they're hiring. And then, I applied, took my final, and then, 6 months later, I graduated. And then 3 months after that, I got my first job in the district. So I got really, really lucky from getting a job straight after college. But it was because I knew what I didn't want to do, working in the office, which now I probably wouldn't mind, but, and also having experience working in the field as young as 17, leading hikes. So that's how I kind of got my foot in the door pretty early in my career.
Thank you for sharing. There's a question about the moderator, which is me, on how I got into the parks. And so I first started working for the parks when I was in college. I'm super local. I went to community college. I went to Ohlone Community College in Fremont, and my mom actually saw a listing that was for Ardenwood Historic Farm as an interpretive student aide. And at the time, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I kept switching my majors. Like, first it was English, then it was nursing. And I was like, actually, I really like anthropology and archaeology. And so my mom's like, it's like living history, like you can totally go out and like see if this is something that you want to do. I had no idea what interpretation was. I didn't know that this was a career that folks actually did. Growing up in Fremont, I frequently went to Coyote Hills and did lots of programs with the parks. So it was like kind of in my wheelhouse that I kind of knew what it would be, but I didn't know that that was something that I could get hired as. And also, the term interpretive, sometimes folks aren't really sure what that means. You often think of a translator. So I worked at Ardenwood for 4 years and kind of bounced around a couple different visitor centers to see other parks. And then when I graduated from Cal State East Bay, with my degree in archaeology, I started working along the coast at different outdoor programs that did Science Week. So like San Joaquin County Outdoor School, kids 4th through 6th grade would come to science camp, and we were naturalists. So I did that for a few years, and then realized that I really wanted to work with youth and continue building those connections, because there's this really beautiful thing that happens in nature, like this magical moment where youth get super engaged, and you have at times these youth who really struggle in school and academics, but when they go outside, like all the barriers kind of get put down from them, and they can really flourish there. So I wanted to continue to have those experiences and like more long-term relationships and connections. So I went back to school and got my teaching credential, and became a special education teacher. And prior to coming back to the district for the last 5 years, I was a middle school special education teacher, and I also taught high school special education with an emphasis on mental health, always incorporating nature back into it. We would do meditation. We also had a garden program, you know, any way that I could get like nature in there. And the entire time I was always applying back with the East Bay Regional Parks, because I was like, I want to be a naturalist. Like, that's what I want to do. Okay, like I'm gonna be there one day. So, and this last year, it happened. I applied and went through the process, and, you know, all the cumulative experience that I've had from teaching as an interpretive student aid, from like my degree in anthropology, from having all these different experiences with different organizations, and being a teacher and seeing really what the needs are, have really helped me become a better naturalist and be a great, well, I guess a great naturalist. Now I'm like tooting my own horn here.
You're great.
But and it's been so wonderful, because I also get to, like, the youth that I serve, like I want them to see themselves in me. I want them to be able to come to the park and be like, oh, okay, cool, let's go. I'm getting in a kayak with her. Like, we're gonna go together. You know what I mean? So that's my experience within the district, and how I came to be a naturalist at Big Break. So thank you for letting me speak and indulging me in that for a little bit.
Can I just say something? When you said Science Week, my kids went to Science Week, and we live in Tracy. So I bet you they went where they go somewhere every year. It's San Joaquin County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
San Joaquin County Outdoor School in
Yes.
it's like in La Honda, Pescadero area.
Yeah, you take them, and you can't call them for like 2 weeks or something. Yes,
Unless it's like an emergency.
Right.
Which are far and few in between.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see, where are we? Here's a good one. So what are some common misconceptions folks have about the work that you do, and how can we kind of rectify these misconceptions and express more effectively what we do? So what misconceptions have you heard, or have people said to you about your professions?
I can go. I've heard, I used to teach at junior college fire academies, and one of the things that you hear young people say always bothered me is the word brave, like being brave to be a firefighter, or maybe you'll come across somebody from the public who says something like that. For me, the profession has nothing to do with that. You do what you do because you're highly trained and you're knowledgeable about what you're doing, and so it has more to do with the things that you know. And for me, that's the drive of most firefighters, is that we're very knowledgeable about what we're doing, and you're not just doing it because you're brave. You're doing it because you have knowledge about what you're doing. The other misconception that I've unfortunately come across, I remember being in line with a fellow firefighter, and the woman in line said to us, she looks at her and goes, "Oh, I didn't know that there was women firefighters." And what I was saying in my head was, what rock have you been under? What do you mean you don't know that there's women firefighters? And obviously I didn't say that out loud, but that's what I was thinking at the time. And so she, gracefully said, "Of course there are." And and so that's, you know, there may not be a lot, but obviously there are. And so for me, that's a misconception that, you know, people, because there's not large numbers of certain people in professions, sometimes there's a misconception that it's because those people don't do it, or that maybe in some cases they don't even exist. But, you know, the fire services, there's lots of different types of people there, and women, and obviously men, and different cultures, and it's not just one, you know, gender or one culture per se.
Thank you.
And I can go ahead and say, I think a common misconception is that it's just a job. And for me, I've experienced that quite a bit. But I take pride in the job, you know, and it becomes more than a job when you see kids every day and they grow up in your parks and they recognize you and they know your name and you know their names. And so it does become more than a job, and we care, you know, and the parks are important. And so I find that that's a common misconception that I don't agree with particularly because it has definitely become more than a job. The district has provided me an opportunity to live and work in a park and a park residence, and have my son partially grow up at a farm, which was a unique experience that a lot of kids don't get. And so that is what I would deem as a common misconception.
Thank you.
There's another common misconception too that I used to hear when I was over at Delgado. You hear people, they see us working in the parks, and I've had a few people said that, oh, I can't get a job like that. No, that's wrong. You can get a job like that. I think some of them they'll think, oh, I got to have this special degree, or I got to get this. That's not absolutely true. If you have a degree in something that the park offers, you might be able to get that. But there's other ones in there. They just have to go on the website, see what interests you, see what piques your interest, and if it applies to you, apply for it. Don't just have that thought that, oh, I can't get that job. You know, because a lot of them look at us and they say, hey, oh, your job was fun. I've told people, they've asked me, do you like your job? And I'm like, no, I don't. I really don't like my job. Then I'll come out, I love my job. You know, so don't ever think that you can't work here for East Bay Regional Park District. Try. Nothing beats a failure but a try. Put it out there. And then once you get your foot in the door, there's opportunities for you to spread your wings for all kinds of other stuff. So that's one of the conceptions. They just broaden your horizons. Don't go in there with your eyes closed.
Yeah, even with the conversation that we've just been having now, there's been a lot of movement, right? Like not everyone has just done the same thing. There's been lots of learning has happened throughout your careers, and some transitions and different opportunities have presented themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say for, you know, anyone who's looking to work for the park district, you know, just like me, when I went to the website, I was literally looking for anything that I could, you know, use my skills to get in. And then, you know, what I would also say is that sometimes young people they forget is to be successful, you have to be willing to fail. And so you're going to be potentially, you know, apply and not get in, and don't let that be your no. You know, you want to figure out maybe what you can do differently. And is it that you could have, maybe you missed something on your application, or you need to just do something differently, try to figure out what that is and apply again. And then eventually you're going to get what you want, and hopefully be great. And you look at, you know, people who are good at their profession, they weren't always successful. They might have, you know, 40% of the time been successful, the other 60% of the time they failed. But what people remember once you do succeed is your success, the things that you did right, not necessarily the things that you did wrong. So you keep trying, and eventually you'll get what you hopefully want, which is to get into the agency or get a job working outdoors.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that Of course, I don't think there's any misconceptions about my job. I've never heard anybody say anything other than they don't know what it is. And so whenever I say I work for, if somebody says, what do you do? I work for I'm the clerk of the board at East Bay Regional Park District. And then they'll just kind of look at me. And I'm like, have you ever watched the city council meeting? The woman that's sitting there taking the notes, that's me, and then they go, oh, and then I say the East Bay Regional Park District is the largest district in the world. It's got 73 parks, it's 2 counties, then I start naming all these parks and then they go, oh, okay. And I'm like, girl, you need to try, or young man, you need to try to apply because it's a great place to work, and that kind of thing. And so that is, it has nothing to do with my job per se, but what it allows me is if somebody asks me where I work and what I do, then I'm able to springboard and give them more information about the district, and then you see their eyes light up. And just what Kari said, I mean, the first time I applied, I did not get my job. I did not, I didn't even get to the interview, and so I tried again, because I knew that once I got in the job, that it was a good job. It was something that I needed, and it allowed me to kind of move around and do the things that I wanted to do in the district. But it afforded me what Ken said, the ability to raise my family, in a place that isn't really all that bad in the scheme of things, right? The district is a good place. And I say this all the time to young people. The district is a great place to work if you want to raise a family.
Mm-hmm. I want to briefly go back to what Kari had said in terms of failures and successes. I also applied for the district many times, right? And so something that my father always told me was like, the more no's you hear, the closer you get to yes. And then once I started teaching, when my students would feel like they failed, if they got a bad grade, or didn't feel like they were being successful. And I'm like, it just didn't work. You tried, you're problem solving right now. Like you tried, it didn't work. That's okay. You just know, like, you don't need to do that next time, right? So like now you can kind of hone in on like where you need to be, right? So I think that's important to remember too. Failure doesn't have to be a bad thing. We definitely can stigmatize it and put a lot of negative connotations on it, but it can also be like, okay, let's just be like a scientist and like, didn't work, next thing, like what does work until we find a solution that does work and fits. Anyone feel like sharing before I move to the next question? All right. So here's a question from the audience, and it sounds like it's a young adult or a youth. They're asking, would y'all change anything about the career choices or career paths that you took? I have a hard time choosing, and I feel like I have to stick to one thing and run with it.
Oh my God. If that's a young person, I would say you do not have to know what it is that you want to do, but what you have to do is something. Right. So as far as me changing, I don't think I would change. You know what? I don't think I would change anything because it got me to where I am today. And so there are things that I wished I would have done differently, definitely apply myself better while I was in college, maybe try to do more things. I didn't do that. I would recommend that whatever it is that you want to do, try it, and as a young person, just what Melissa just said, failure is not the end of the world. It's just getting you closer to the yes that you're going to get to. So that's just, and I say that because my daughter is 19 and she's in college and she's a sophomore, and she always tells me she doesn't know what she wants to do. And I'm like, do something. You're in school, just try anything, and whatever you do, I'll be there to support you. And I'm sure that this young person, their family is going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Just keep trying different things, to be honest. Like, even though it seemed like I kind of had this like streamlined career and goal, I actually on the side did so many other things. Like, for anything from being like a ref to, writing curriculum in schools, but I knew all those experiences helped me know and narrow down what I was really passionate about. So I would say just do everything. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I would say one thing I would change is like maybe not be as shy. Feel, you know, it's okay to like, check in on people and maybe like, you can't show our face now and walk into the doors and places, but just, you're not bothering anybody by doing that. I love it when young people come to me and literally just call and be like, hey, how can I work here? Or, what can I do? Are there any jobs available? I know it's kind of hard in this tech age, but I think just putting yourself out there, not being afraid, doing what you're doing now, asking, you're on a Zoom call with people and you just put yourself out there by asking that question, that you're already doing the good work that you need to do right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, I think one misconception young people see is that they'll see somebody where they're already successful and they don't realize that there was this long journey for them to get where they're at. I used to speak to high school kids and things, and there was a time in my life, when I was around 18, I was very young and typical kid growing up in Oakland and just misdirected, doing all the wrong things, and had some pretty dramatic stuff happen to some friends that I hung out with, which caused me to want to grow up and kind of get my stuff together and start going to school and stuff, which I did. And that was the first start for me to start to apply myself. And then I used to look back on things and go, oh, what if I would have done this or done that? And as I got older, I realized that all the things that I've done, this roundabout process that I took in life that got me to where I am now, was the process that I had to go through for me to be where I am today. And I've worked many different jobs in wide different fields. I had a friend joke with me the other day and goes, God, what have you not done? And she was just but when I look back on that, that was the process that I had to take to get to where I'm at. And now I can, all those little things, all those things I have done are things I get to apply today. And it was all necessary. And that struggle and that long about frustration and hard times and all that stuff was all part of the process. And I realize that now. And so with my own children, I will be letting them know that, in life, you're gonna go through this process, and at times it's gonna be frustrating. It's gonna be hard. You're gonna feel like you don't have a direction or you don't quite know if things are gonna work out. And that's all part of it, that uncomfortable feeling. You need to go through that. It's all part of your process to get to your end goal. And young people don't know that yet because they haven't gotten to your end goal. But as you get older and you reach those goals, you realize, oh, that was 100% necessary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Because I think, when you're young, like you said, you don't know which direction you're going. So you got all kinds of things. I want to do this. I want to be that. I want to do that. My daughter, she's 12. She's doing that right now, thinking about stuff, what she wants to do when she's older. But I'm pretty sure that's going to change as it goes along. And I think with any of the young generation today, you'll find it sooner or later. Go through whatever, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, who knows how many it'll be until you find out which one your career path is actually going to be. I know for me, I like I said, I started out, I was in construction with my father. Wanted me to take over the business, but it's not what I wanted to do. I soaked up all the knowledge of it, but that knowledge got brought to me and I took it to East Bay Regional Park. So I was able to use that, everything he taught me when I was a ranger. When I first started, it was a PSA, Park Service Attendant back then. Then I became a ranger. I put all those skills that I learned from him into the park. When I was real young, I wanted to be a truck driver, driving 18-wheelers. Then while I'm in the park district, since I already knew how to drive trucks, I stepped into something in the East Bay Regional Park District. Now look, I'm driving those trucks. So, and my sister made a comment, you've been in there 22 years. Some people have had 10, 11, 12 jobs where you got a career and you probably only, I think my count probably would be 5 or 6 jobs. I'll say 5, but I've stuck with this one all the way through. So to the young generation out there, just keep doing what you're doing. You'll probably knock on some doors that might say no. You might come across some that say yes, and you'll have to find out what you want to do from that point. You might not stick with it. You'll move on to the next one until you find the one that you're really stuck on and that you like, make a career of. And if it's East Bay Regional Park, come on down.
And if I may, I would like to add that I feel like I am a prime example of you can do anything that you put your mind to. I've been at 5 different parks. I was a firefighter for 10 years with Kari as well. And I would just say, if there was anything that I would change, it would just be to start sooner, because there's so many things that you can do. And just don't quit, don't give up. And you can do anything that you want to do. Put your mind to it. And I honestly feel like my aspiration to become a supervising naturalist one day, or should that change to another position, that I have the support and the means and able to pursue that. And so, at 43 years old, I still feel like I could become a supervising naturalist, and I would have that support and the opportunity to do so should I choose.
I think that's great. I think also it's like, you don't have to have everything figured out right now. You're young, you're gaining all those experiences, like Kari said, right? But also it's never too late either. What Ken said, like, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to transition. It's okay to try something different. Like, your path and the way that you walk is very different from everyone else's. You can't compare yourself to others, right? So, oh, I love it. I love it so much. I'm getting like good feels. All right, let's do like a really like a good positive. This has been like a really positive role, but I want to keep it going. So, what is the best part of your job, and what do you like the most? Ooh, I'm like, ooh. What is the best part of your job?
I really like this question. If I can go, I really love interacting with people. And as I mentioned earlier, I really love kids. I love seeing the kids in the park, playing in puddles, playing with sticks, and just really enjoying being kids. And I really feel like that's important.
For me, the best part of my job is that I'm able to be independent, and I'm able to manage my time. And I like that, I like, and as much as I am a social butterfly when it comes to all things people, when I'm able to, when I'm in my office, go into the Yolanda that likes to think, that likes to read, that likes to try to figure out things, and working for the district and managing the records and all of that. I like that, and so I'm able to do, work the way that I need to work so that I can get the best out of me and the department.
Yeah, for me, there's a lot of things, but the more selfish things, when I talk about my original attraction, which is seeing like that ranger on the ATV. I mean, today, obviously I could do ATVs, I can do gators, you get the flying helicopters, fire engines are really cool to operate off of. There's boats. I mean, there's all sorts of like cool stuff that you get to operate and do. And then working in the parks, there's times when you're at an incident and you look over and you can see the Golden Gate Bridge and you see this amazing view, and or you're just hiking in the park, exercising, and you look at your work office and you go, this is amazing. I have times just go park I have like a work vehicle, and sometimes I'll just go park in a park somewhere and work out of my vehicle with some cool view. And for me, I have a personal connection to what I do because I use the parks myself. And now being a firefighter, we get to help people when they have bad days in the park. So you could have tripped and fell and now you're stuck. And we get to use our skills to figure out how to get to you. And then when we get there, our job is to make it, make your experience hopefully a little bit better now. We have lots of services that can get you out of your bad situation. So for me, that's fun, using your skills to help people, get them out of the park when they're having a bad day. And just for me, that's very fulfilling, because I could easily be one of those park users because I hike in the park myself. And it gives me a lot of satisfaction. I always tell people hiking in the parks, it's actually a very safe place. Between our police department, that it's just a safe place because of our departments, and then also our fire department. If you get injured, there's a lot of services to get you out of there. So it's just I just like it overall.
For me, I would say my favorite part is actually like you can like interacting with the public. That's pretty much the basis of my job, but the part that I love the most is hearing people's childhood stories or stories in the park that like, like, oh, my dad took me here and we did this and we did that. Or like, hey, my grandpa took us fishing here, or my grandmother used to take us on walks and places like that. And then I say, wow, like you're really into the outdoors. That's amazing. And sometimes those people won't even consider themselves outdoorsy people, but when you get the conversation going, they're like, oh yeah, I am. And especially having conversations with different members of the community who maybe didn't see themselves being outdoorsy type outdoors, and then giving them that power and saying like, these parts belong to you. You have a history here. You belong here. And seeing people feel that, sense of place, feeling like, hey, like, I do have belonging here in the parks. That's everything for me. Like that's the best part of my job, helping people feel comfortable and realizing they are a part of nature as well. And their history is connected to nature as well, whether in a small part, or in, way back in generations, or even, when they are remembering those childhood memories. I think that's really cool, because when people feel that they're connected to the park, they feel empowered to improve the park and be empowered to, just take ownership and take care of the surroundings. That's my favorite part.
I know for me, I'm like Kari. I could think of a whole bunch of things. I know when I was a ranger, I'm a people person also, and I love it. It's just like, especially with kids, like Ken said, it is amazing to watch the kids when they come out, they're enjoying themselves. I think one of my favorite things, since I love fishing, I used to love it when they throw the fishing derbies together, and the little kids would come out there and they don't know nothing about fishing, but all they do is drop a pole out there and they get that bite and pull up the biggest smile in the world. Oh my God, oh my God. And it's just amazing to see that kind of stuff. You feel just as happy as they are, like you catching the fish with them. Then, like I said, others, it's been, been able to help people. I remember dealing with campground stuff. You're definitely dealing with the public when you're doing that. Being able to help them out, solve problems, just try to get them to enjoy themselves and have fun. And now that I'm doing the sanitation thing, I guess the best thing for me now is the freedom of going to all the parks. I'm seeing so much more of the park district now that I hadn't been able to see. And I'm like, Kari, shoot, there's times I'll go park a certain spot, have lunch, or go sit back for a break at the beach. You got choices. Which park do you want to go to today? So that's my favorite thing out of it all.
What would you all say then is the most challenging or a challenging component of your job?
I'll go. For me, it's what's frustrating for me. I came from we all came from the private sectors. That's a weird statement, but for my experience working in a private sector was different compared to working in the district. The district for me it's just a really good job, and my quality of life is really good here compared to where I was working the .com and working in magazines and stuff. So when I come across, and I'm convinced it's a personality thing, but sometimes I come across, it's pretty rare, I come across somebody who maybe doesn't appreciate like where they're at or the position that they're holding. And every so often I come across that. And so for me, it's so frustrating because I know that one, there would be somebody who would love to have your job, number one. And it's just frustrating to see somebody that at times doesn't appreciate the job that they do have. And it's pretty rare, but for me, that would be the only frustrating thing is, within every organization, there's always somebody who maybe doesn't appreciate their own situation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
For me, the most challenging part of my job is managing the executive team and the board, managing their different priorities. I wouldn't say they were different priorities. The priorities are the same, but it's how they want to go about getting them done. And so I'm usually the middle person in there. And, there's certain things like, we need to get the board packet out at a certain time. We're on these deadlines. And especially now, everybody's Zooming and in different places, it makes it much more difficult. But regardless of what everybody else does, the clerk's office has to get that packet out. And that means in order for that to happen, because today was really busy with me doing other things, I'm going to be up until the cows come home tonight to make sure that we get it out for tomorrow. So, and that's a challenge, but it's not a negative challenge. Sometimes it's frustrating, but I know so that's well, I guess it is a negative challenge because sometimes you find that, if you guys would just send in the material when it's supposed to be sent in, we could get it all done, right? And then, but then you also realize that because everybody is now doing all these different things, some of that is not possible, and so it's meeting the deadlines. We can do that in our office, but it's hard when other people don't respect that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a challenge.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds super challenging.
For me, I think I don't know, it's hard to pick a challenge because I kind of see them as opportunities, and I guess it's a good challenge for me is so a lot of times we have to, as interpreters or naturalists, we tell stories, right? We talk about history. Like for one thing I talk about is about history of mining, right? So a lot of those stories have been told for generations with one perspective. Usually has to do with only, that this does not include people of color. And so for me, a challenge is how to make things more relevant. How do we encourage diverse storytelling into our parks, and not just at one park or one section, but at all the different aspects and stories we tell, whether it's military history at Fort Chicago, whether it's mining history, whether if we are including Native people in introducing our programs, things like that. Those are the good challenges that I actually like. But again, it is challenging because there's so many people used to hearing that one story. But once you include other stories that are diverse and more inclusive, it brings more people together. So that's what makes the challenge worth it for me.
Thank you. I think for me, the most challenging part of my job is watching the accessibility component, like youth being able to access transportation or the funding for transportation to just get to our parks. That part for me is the most challenging part, but I do see some positivity in that we're able to facilitate Zoom virtual field trips now. So that's like dangling carrots, trying to get it that way, and then encourage them to encourage their families to come out and visit us on the weekends. Like that's been like a nice way to overcome that kind of challenge. Kind of stemming from Virginia, what you've been saying, I do have a question in here that says, do you feel a certain responsibility to communicate misconceptions that people of color do not have a connection to nature? And do you have any recommendations on how to connect urban activities to nature that can assist with building a bridge? I can also repeat the question because it's like a two-part.
I also see the question too. So that is a great question. Something that I'm actually, interested in myself. I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions that folks of color, don't appreciate nature or recreate nature, which is crazy because we all just talked about how we love nature and how we just started recreating the parks from an early age. But it does come from somewhere. It comes from, even though Black folks, people of color, have always had a connection with nature due to historic events, maybe things, horrible things took place in places of nature, like in the woods and things like that. So over the years, there's been this misconception that folks just don't, and Black folks don't enjoy going outdoors. So for me, I love representing, me representing working in the parks because it shows people like, hey, this is a safe place. We all belong here. So I do have a response. I feel responsible for that in a way of, having people feel more comfortable. Just seeing me in the uniform might help encourage somebody else like, hey, it's okay. And also it can undo that storytelling, that false narrative, that we all debunked today in the beginning of this program.
I just wanted to say that, since we have been, kind of sheltering in place here in our homes, I've been doing a lot of reading and learning, attending webinars on Black history. And one of the things, because even though we're all Black, we don't really know our history. I think we're learning it now more than ever. But one of the things I was thinking, and this is just a thought, was I was reading about this place in Alabama years ago, not that long, like in the 40s, maybe. And instead of allowing Black people to come to the park, they closed it down because they didn't want to segregate. They didn't want to, integrate. Mm-hmm. And then that happened so many places. So I'm thinking, and you guys are the maybe that is really where it came from. We were not allowed to participate in those parks. And so when we wanted to, they were shut, they were closed, so then nobody could participate. Mm-hmm. And, I just kind of thought about that as I was listening, because you're right, we always were outside, family reunions, I just think it is that, every time that I've gone to a park, and even our parks, and it's been a lot of us, not recently because there's more Black people that work in the park. It was a lot of staring. It was a lot of, the police would ride around, kind of in the background, because it was too many of us or something like that. So that, there's, like Virginia said, there's a fear of that, and so we have to overcome that you guys are overcoming that by being the faces for, for Black people in the park, and making it more comfortable, so that's just how, it just came to me about that story because I was surprised, this communities after communities closed their pools because they didn't want to segregate. And then they moved, then they took the, then when the Black people would no longer try to get there, then they would reopen them like 10 years later with all these rules so that, that you had to live in the community then. So, we were pushed out of parks.
Absolutely. Yeah. From the institution of many of our public lands, they were not accessible by law through, different laws, whether it be Jim Crow or if, segregated, but I remember a coworker telling me that she remembered, she lived in badge fell off. But she lived through segregation. And she lived through parts when it was segregated, and they would look at the beautiful parks that were for white folks, and then she had to go to the Black only park, which was literally gravel. That's it. So those stories are true, and I encourage folks to learn about that history and why that is.
Yeah, when I think about access and things like that, I've lived in many different parts of Oakland, and when I was closer to the hills, I had access. But then later on as an adult, I used to live in West Oakland, and when I would see the young kids there, it was obvious that they hung out from their immediate surrounding. And if you think about, we take it for granted that people have cars and things like that, but everybody doesn't have cars. And so if you don't have access to either take, buses or whatever, be able to get to our parks, a lot of our parks obviously are in the hills. Yes, we have, MLK and other parks, but we have a lot of parks obviously in the hills. And so that's where having programs that give people access, or the naturalist field is super important as far as bringing outreach to young kids, because I know when I would talk with young kids and you could tell that for them it was weird being in the park because they had never been in the park, and so for them it was just different. They're like, is there a snake? Or you could tell there's a scary aspect to it for them because they got plopped out of their environment and plopped into this new environment. And so that's the reason I was kind of mentioning earlier, having access at a young age, or just even in general, even just a field trip, I think is positive to get more people of color in the parks.
Coming from that question or that response, Kari, just in general, are there any thoughts on how the district could recruit more folks of color? Does anyone have any thoughts, suggestions?
I mean, I see that when you look at the park district, I'll just take my own department. We don't get a lot of people of color that come across our department as far as being able to hire. And my theory on that, I just think you would almost have to do like a grassroots type of thing where you would go to certain neighborhoods, maybe like Boys and Girls Clubs or whatever, certain areas, and let people know that these jobs are here. And I know that the district tries its best to do outreach and expose everybody to these jobs, but I really am convinced that a lot of people just don't see the jobs. They just don't know that they exist, or they might be intimidated thinking that, are they gonna get it, or just not having somebody to help them navigate through it. And so for me, one of the things I personally do for people who know that it's available is, I make myself available to anyone who has questions about how to get hired. And for those young people who do contact me or email me, I give them a full-on template of all the inside stuff of how to the pitfalls as far as making sure your application is correct, to no misspellings, to all the things that you'll have to do to get through to be able to get hired here. And that's just, my opinion is we need to get more grassroots information about the jobs to different communities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that also, because I've run into a lot of people myself that, they don't even know anything about East Bay Regional Park. And I think it's an information thing, because I know I've stumbled across other people and said, hey, the East Bay Regional Park is hiring, go to this website, just to try to see if they can get their foot in the door. So I'm in agreement with that. It's got to be some information more given out so they'll know.
I would just say that I think you're right about the information, but I think that's what human resources is supposed to do. And I think that in any organization, and
Right.
I think that they can't reach out to places they don't know about.
Right.
They don't know about it because there's nobody that looks like you in that department. So sometimes we have to, it all goes back to hiring. You know, we have to hire. I mean, if they were to ask me, you, Virginia, anybody, where can we get, where do we need to go to hire or to reach out to certain communities? We can tell you that. You know, I can show you that. I can take you there, you know, and we need to be able to hire the people that can help. We had that a while ago. We don't have that anymore. So we're starting brand new, you know, and so I think the district really needs to ask, you know, I mean, you know, I think if, you know, if we were to go to boys and, I mean, now what we're talking about is people that are old enough to get a job, right? We're not talking about young kids, you know, we're talking about kids that are in college, you know, and so we've got all kinds of junior colleges that are right around the district. I don't know if they go to those junior colleges and talk to those kids. I don't know that, you know, maybe they do, you know, and, you know, I just think we need to be more deliberate about who we send our information to, you know, and I mean, I know lots of kids and lots of young people in this area that want to be police officers and firemen, you know, and so it's not that it's not there. It's just that we're not reaching out to them. So, and I really don't know exactly how we do that in HR, but we need to do it better. That we do need to do.
Yeah, I agree with everything everyone else just said. I think we can't just say, well, there's no people out there that have the qualifications. I think that's easy to say, but that's not true. Just looking, maybe being more creative and looking for folks, because the talent is out there. You know, just this year we had, you know, things around social media, which was hashtag Black birders, Black biologists, Black botanists, or, you know, all different types of hashtags that came out of these situations that came out of the country due to, you know, racial injustice, and it created a movement in the environmental field on social media. Just look on Instagram. Like I just met so many Black marine biologists during Black Marine Biologist Week. So we can't just say, well, we don't know anybody that fits the qualifications. There's plenty of young, old, qualified Black folks out there. It's just like you said, we need to know where they are and maybe, you know, sharpen those, you know, the tools that we have, and making sure that we're hitting social media, we're going to the places where they're at, going to the platforms they're at, going to the meetings when we can meet with that, you know, these events are happening, because there's so much talent out there. Even for me, who has been in this field for about 10 years now, I've met so many people just in the Bay Area who are, you know, Black ecologists, Black, you know, marine biologists, botanists, people who study reptiles in just this 1 year.
Mhm.
So, like you said, like you all said, like we just have to expand our horizons.
Yeah, and I actually work pretty close with our HR, and they actually do ask the question, you know, where should we put these postings? And the problem I see is where we put posting places, it's a little place ads, or we'll put, you know, some type of paper up on some hallway. And so that's the type of outreach that happens, you know, because we're a small district. There's not a lot of personnel to actually go to these places and try to do job fairs and things like that. And so I think when you do have enough, you know, resources to do job fairs and actually have a person there, like I know in the police side, they do job fairs and they have people attend, you know, places like that. But you have to have the ability to be able to send personnel to see a face and talk to people. And I think that's probably the most effective way of, you know, luring people in that, hey, this is a great place to work and you should think about applying.
Yeah, well, I hope we're not, just to kind of figure, I hope we're not putting paper up anymore, because that's not gonna work. You know, that, if that's what we're doing, I don't know. But yeah, I do agree that we need to, as you can tell, this is like my pet peeve. I think we just really need to reach out. I mean, I've worked at the district for 29 years. And I've told this story, you know, where the main office is, you know, I can guarantee you most of the people that worked in the main office did not know how to go down the street and turn left. Why? Because they were afraid. So, you know, so the community is there, you know, and I just think we need to, if we're going to have people reach out to the community, the people that are reaching out from the district need to look like the community. And sometimes we have a tendency to talk down to people when we go to these kinds of, you know, about what they're going to, what the district can. I mean, it's a talking down, you know, you're a Black person, you know what I'm saying? There's a way that you should talk to people, and it's the same way that you talk to all people. So I think, and I still believe, that every single person that has gotten hired at the district, Black, white, yellow, and green, has gone through the same process, you know, the same exact process. And I think we should all be treated that way once we get in the job. And so, yes, I know that there's that the HR department is small, but it's always been the same size. You know, right now it's small because well, I think they might be up to full staff now, but you know, to me, it just requires deliberate reaching out, going to boys and not boys and girls. I'm still dealing with, I mean, college. You know, we're talking about people that can work. You know,
It also, you know, it starts young too, right? So
yeah.
like just being visible, being present within the community, being connected with the various communities that we serve, right? Just being in constant partnership with organizations that folks trust, like that all over time builds up trust. And it's like, okay, like this is a pathway that I can take. Like I know these people, I know that leaf, I know those folks in khaki and in green and etc. Right. Okay. So Yolanda, you had kind of mentioned, you kind of talked about like how folks are kind of talked to or perceived. And so I did want to take a bit of a deep dive and talk about and have a little bit of a dialogue about microaggressions. And so I just want to explicitly say for our audience or anyone that's listening, if you don't know what a microaggression is, it's an everyday action or behavior that can have harmful effects on marginalized groups. And it's a subtle behavior. It can be verbal or nonverbal, conscious or unconscious. You may not even realize that you're doing it, but it's directed at a member of a marginalized group. And so the question that I have for y'all is, in the past year, instances of microaggressions that impact the Black community have been recorded and filmed as folks are spending leisurely time recreating in parks, exercising outside, birding, or even simply enjoying a barbecue with friends and family. And so with the onset of social media, these microaggressions have made national media attention because everyone can just immediately record, send a text. Have you or has anyone experienced microaggressions while fulfilling your routine job duties or off the clock, just engaging outside or enjoying your enjoying outdoor time with your family and friends? It was a big one.
I guess
So
I'll go ahead.
Tony?
No, go ahead.
So I'll jump in and say that I have experienced verbal and nonverbal microaggressions in the past. I had an opportunity to be a resident, and I won't mention where it was or the park, but I have had a curator tell me that having me live in the residence was like old times. And so these things happen, they do exist. And I would just concur that the microaggressions, they're still out there, they're still prevalent, they still affect us.
Yes, they definitely do. Just recently for me last year, June of last year, as I say, I'm in different parks. I chose a park, won't call off the park, but to go have lunch and kick back. And I had somebody walk up to my rig that I was eating in. I automatically went into customer service mode because I figured, he was going to ask me a question. Well, he did. He asked me, why was I here? And I was like, oh, there used to be a Kimmy that we used to service over here. It's not here anymore. So I'm just out here now, just enjoying myself, having a little break and everything. His response back was, yeah, and why are you here? And when he knew about the Kimmy, but I caught it afterwards, like, why are you here, being the Black person that I am? Mm-hmm. So I didn't bite into it. I just looked at him and I said, hey, with all that's going on in this world today, this is the best place to be right now. All the peacefulness and everything that I got in front of me, that's why I'm here. He looked me in my eyes, stared me down, and then got ready to turn away and walk away. I just looked at him back. Hey, you have a good day. He had his son out there with him, and I guess they were out there picking litter or something like that. But I think the worst part of that situation was his son saw that. This microaggression and stuff, that's not something we want to see our kids and stuff, learning or anything like that. But yeah, it exists and it's still around.
Thank you for sharing that. You handled that situation so well and so professionally on top of it, right? And also role modeled to like that child, that like you didn't have to engage in a negative way. So kudos to you, Tony. Okay.
I would say for me, I definitely have encountered microaggressions. Not just working in the park district, but working in different aspects, working outdoors, or even just my personal time. One time while I was on the clock, I had like things like this scenario happened a couple of times. I would meet somebody and I would say, hey, how can I help you? I usually help people like, figuring out where they are on the trail. And I was actually way back in back of the park where there's like nobody out there. And then I saw someone who looked lost, and my coworker, he was a little bit further out on the trail, and he asked like, hey, he asked me, what are you doing out here? You're a park ranger. And I told him I was a naturalist. He kind of like looked at me like, are you sure you're a naturalist? And I was just like, yeah, I'm a naturalist. And he was like, you can't be a naturalist. So I was like, I am a naturalist. So like, I got the badge, got the name tag. Hello, I'm here. And then they just continued to just kind of question it. Like, you can't be a naturalist. And they even went on quizzing me on my animal knowledge. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was like, okay, that was a little annoying, but everyone likes to play Stomp the Ranger, right? So I just kind of let it roll. And then my colleague came up and he like introduced himself like, hey, I'm Ranger so-and-so or Naturalist so-and-so. There's no doubts, no questions. He almost looked like, you're the ranger who I pictured in my mind who should be out here working this job. So it's just that change in how you're approached, and then kind of testing you if you actually belong here. That happens to me a lot as a Black woman working outdoors.
I recall once when I was in the office and when I was younger, I had so much going on in my life. And so there was so much, it was just lots of stuff happening personally. But, and I was just, seems like every time I turned around, I was making a mistake. And if I wasn't making a mistake, somebody was saying I made a mistake, and it was just like so much. And I was overwhelmed with my life, right? But I was going to work every day and doing the work. And one day I heard, and I'm on the 4th floor. And one day while I'm sitting there, I hear 2 other coworkers say, full well knowing that I'm right there, what is she doing? And it wasn't like, what is she doing? It was, I can't really tell you, but I knew it was not, because it was just horrible, and I was already having a horrible day. And I just, at that time, I just couldn't take it, you know, and I just stood up and I said, I am sick of you people, you know, and I had this huge explosion. I'm sure it's recorded somewhere in East Bay Regional Park District history, you know, cried, went downstairs, and I just couldn't get myself together, you know, because I was like, I am tired of being talked about like this while I'm sitting here, you know, and then you have to keep it together and then come back to work. And so, and that was a small thing, but it was really traumatic to me, you know. And I recall going to parks. I remember years ago, again, when I was single, I was at Miller Knox, and there was a lot of people. No, was it Miller Knox? Yeah, there was a lot of people out there, and we were having so much fun. And all of a sudden, you know, the police come through, and out of all the people out there, they come to our car, right? And we're just standing there. And then they go through all of these questions. And I'm like, I'm looking around like, is there any other, you know, did we do something wrong? You know, so, and you know, nothing happened, but it was embarrassing, you know, and so it's belittling. And so that, you know, those were my, and I've had lots of experiences like that. I remember once when I was walking across the street, this wasn't at a park, and we were coming from a game, a whole bunch of us were coming from a game, and the person directing the traffic, once we got in the middle, he let the traffic through. And we were the only people of color there. And I was like, we're gonna get hit. And he just stood there. And I was younger. I think I was in high school when that happened. So that's constant, you know, and consistent. So I guess that's a microaggression or real aggression. I don't know, you know.
Just because something is micro, like the word micro doesn't, it's not supposed to minimize it, right? Like
Right.
it's still meaningful, it's still impactful, and can have a really powerful effect on the person that it's being directed towards. So it's just blatant, overt. Yeah. Tony.
Yeah, I remember, I'm like Yolanda, I think one of the worst ones I had, I was in my beginning stages, and same things. I had to tell a customer they couldn't do something. And there's times we got to tell them, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, they gave me a few choice words on the way out and told me, I'll just use it lightly, the heck with you, with the N-word. The heck with you was a little more graphic. I was like, okay. And the sad part, I was training somebody, and the person was like, they started crying because, and they were new. I was just like, wow. You know, they said, does that bother you? I was like, not the way you think. I said, but you know, that's the ignorance that we have to deal with some people sometimes. So, and we just gotta, you know, move past it, you know.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. I don't know if anyone else had anything else that they wanted to say. I'm kind of looking. No, okay. So I just want to say thank you for being very honest. These conversations can be uncomfortable, but they're also necessary. And it's also important that these conversations are seen. And we have a platform and an avenue where we can share experiences, both really positive and both uncomfortable and learning experiences that we can grow from. So I really want to say thank you for sharing that last bit. The next question that I want to ask you is, on a more lighter tone, what are you most proud of? And this can be in your professional career, at the parks, a personal achievement. What are you most proud of?
I'm going to go first because I always say, and the thing that I'm most proud of is that I've raised 3 absolutely fabulous children. That is what I'm the most proud of in my life. You know, I have a 25-year-old, a 22-year-old, both boys, or not boys, men, and a 19-year-old daughter. That is what I'm the most proud of. And in terms of my job, as I alluded to, you know, working for the Park District has been throughout all has been the best thing for me, you know, in terms of being able to raise my children. And I was married, then I was divorced, then I was engaged, then I was married, and then I was not. I had a house, didn't have a house, you know, moved all over the place, you know, and through it all, I was able to, you know, to do the things necessary to not only raise my children, but you know, to be able to educate myself more and more, and to the point where, you know, I feel as if my life is headed in the, you know, I think in the direction now where I just want to do so much, right? I want to learn so much because I believe that I fulfilled the basic necessaries of my life, which was to raise my children. But as far as my job, I'm proud of that because of how I got there. You know, like I said, when I was the most troubled in my life is where I had some of the worst times at work, because it was hard for me to separate those things, personal things, from job things. And so there was a lot of mistakes made by you know, but I had grace, you know, and there was a lot of grace for that. And I was told that I could never be the clerk of the board by somebody. And that upset me, but that motivated me, you know, and I thanked her for that honest assessment. And I worked my behind off to get that job, get this job, and to be better and to improve and to get my skills up and to learn more. And, you know, and so I made it, and the board members hired me. So they had some trust in me that I could do the job. And so that's really what I'm proud of, overcoming adversity in all parts of my life and keeping it moving.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess for myself, when I look back on, you know, being 18 years old and having not the ideal beginning or start, and how many different, you know, ways that story could have ended not well, or it just could have been a different story, different book. But, you know, for me, the fact that I got through all that stuff and eventually got the job that I did want. And, you know, for me, my motivation wasn't necessarily about money, but it did have to do with the ability to get myself out of situations I didn't want to be in. So for example, you know, I was always very driven that if I was in a bad situation, I wanted the money to be able to hire a lawyer to get myself out of that situation. Or I wanted the ability to move to a neighborhood that I didn't want to necessarily live in. I always wanted that freedom to make my own choices. And the career paths I took allowed me to have that. So now looking back, you know, having 3 kids and living in a good, safe neighborhood, and I have a great job, you know, something that I pinch myself that I get paid to even do what I do, because it's that natural for me. I just feel very blessed when I look back on that, and just I'm glad that things worked out how they did. You know, for me, one of the best paybacks I ever got is I ran into a guy that I knew in high school back in my troubled days, and he's like, "What do you do now?" And I said, "I'm a fire captain." He said, "What?" Looked like so shocked and disappointed. And I just thought it was the funniest reaction. I was like, wow, you really must have not liked me.
And you're like, yeah.
Because you are really upset right now. And so at that moment, I realized, you know, how far I had came as far as just seeing that reaction from him. He still saw the person I was in the past and not the person that I had became.
So I'll go and say that I am proud of being a park supervisor, and I'm proud of being one of 2 Black supervisors, park operations, park supervisors in the district. I have the opportunity to mentor folks, to provide encouragement for them, and, you know, at the very least for folks to see me in the position and, you know, doing it respectfully and trying to do the best I can is encouraging for folks. And I have a lot of young people in the district looking for information from me and tutelage from me. And I feel blessed that I can provide them with that information. And so I'm very proud of that.
I would say the same, Ken. Like, my proudest thing, you know, working with the district would have to be the ability to mentor young people, you know, from our ISAs, which are interpretive student aides, who are college students. And I see them move on into their careers and sometimes become co-workers. It's like the best feeling. In 2016, I started an internship program, the first of its kind in the district, where we took teens from Antioch High School and I helped them learn about park careers. And it was so cool because then the next year, those interns who are high schoolers became some of my coworkers, and they were able to get jobs going and help them figure out what they want to do in college. And we're starting up that program again, me and Melissa. Hopefully it all goes well. You know, it's going to be a challenge to pivot that into the virtual world, but we're working on it.
Hey, we got it.
We
got it. We're gonna do it.
We're gonna try our best, but that is like the proudest thing ever. It's just helping other people find their path, just because, you know, the reason I even got started on this path is because someone mentored me at 18.
Mm-hmm.
So to just pass it forward.
Yeah, for me, I'm proud to be in a spot now. I guess I'll call it my happy place. The district has put me in my happy place now. And this is where I walk my way right out the door when it's time.
I'm following you.
No, but I'm proud, like I said, to be in a position now. I mean, where I'm not to say that I wasn't in a position before in the other parks and stuff, where I'm still running in the faces at different parks, making people smile. They make me smile. You know what I'm saying? I don't worry about them other ones that, you know, you want to try to ruin my day. Not happening. I got too many others that make my day. And, you know, like Ilana was saying, it's I'm in a position where my daughter, I take her out to these places, to parks and stuff. She enjoys it, and I'm trying to keep that going. So when I ain't here, I hope she keeps it going. Keep it going, because that's what we need. So if I can stay in this position for as long as I can, hey, I'm a happy camper. That's all I got to say.
I think the thing that I'm most proud of is I just get to work with youth all day and support them in finding nature inspiring. And hopefully, you know, that builds into future environmentalists and folks that care about this planet. And to have other youth go into the fields of work that I'm in. Like, I love being a naturalist. It's literally my dream job. Like, I worked so hard for this. And I'm so happy to be here. And I just want other youth to know that it's possible, and just continue to help be a conduit to support others from all different backgrounds to come and feel the way that I do. Like, I love going into work every day. Like, there's always going to be some kind of silly stuff going on, but at the end of the day, like, I'm proud of what I do. I'm proud that I get to serve youth and the general public that are interested in the outdoors. Like, what a rewarding job that I get to go outside and like teach folks how to kayak, or, you know, identify a different bird species, and like just experience that like wonder with them, like every single time. It's like, oh gosh, like how cool is that? It's so cool. So that is going to be our last question, because we were about to be at 7:30. So y'all did it, 2 hours. Made it happen.
Thank you, Melissa, for everything. Such a great job in facilitating those questions. I just want to say thank you before we head
thank you. I was getting a little warm in here, a little nervous, but I think it went really well. And I just want to say thank you. Like I keep saying thank you, but we couldn't have this program without y'all consenting and agreeing to do this. And it's just great. And I hope that this is a starting point to continued conversations around opportunities within the district and to continue to connect with our youth and young adult audiences.
Can I just say one thing before we leave? I just forgot to mention that to all of the Black employees that don't know, we have created or established or founded the Black Employee Collective. So to any of you that are on the meeting that are interested in reaching out to us, just send me an email, or Virginia or Melissa or Ken or Car, anybody. And so we can get to know you and meet you, and we can work on this thing together. So together.
I
Yeah.
want to add one last thing before we get out of here to the younger youth out there too. As all y'all can see, these are all my coworkers, and there's other coworkers that are in the Park District. You see all of us smiling, having fun. This is truly the way it is. We have a great time with the Park District. And if it's your interest, don't let nothing stop you. Reach out. Like we said, nothing beats a failure but a try. So reach out and do what you need to do.